Sounds great. Is that your regular band?
Yeah, that's pretty much everybody that plays in the Resonators plays on the albums. And every once in a while we'll have some guests stop in, but it's pretty much a bunch of old married people at this point. And it's nice. You get this when you work with the same people a lot. If you can keep from falling into sort of a stagnant thing, there's an unspoken thing. It really is like a marriage. It's like you're kind of finishing each other's thoughts or this or that. Or you want to. In my case, I want to surround myself with people who won't always go, that's great, Mike. That's really good. Right. That's perfect. Well, but they'll say, we might want to try this instead. So if nothing else, we have the freedom and the leeway and the time, since we're not paying an hourly rate at the studio, to try things and hopefully come up with the best thing for the song.
That song has a great feel to it, but I know you probably don't want to pick apart your own lines, but I love that metaphor of radio waves being kind of how we live, right? Giving up to the radio waves, but you're also on the radio for a living and, riding them yourself.
It's been a hell of a ride. I mean, we were talking beforehand. After MSB broke up, I still did a couple gigs every once in a while, but I got into television and did that for like 8 or 9 years. And then when that sort of started to go away, I said, what am I going to do? And I just happened to get an offer to go on the radio at WNCX from a gentleman by the name of Doug Podell, who was the program director at that point. And it wasn't totally foreign to me because I'd spent most of my adult life going to radio stations, only I was the guy who was going in trying to get him to play my record. And my dad had been a disc jockey. He was the first all-night disc jockey in the United States down at WFMJ in Youngstown. And so I'd been hanging around radio stations, so that wasn't a thing. But I really figured, okay, I'll do this for maybe a year or maybe 2 till I figure out what I really want to do with the whole thing. And that's 26 years ago. And
it's funny about life.
It's been a great place to work, and like I said, and the hours are great.
Yeah.
If you can find a 4-hour-a-day job, take it. It's really a good thing.
Well, it's really you on the radio too, which kind of takes us back to DJs having real personalities, and it's kind of what we fell for, right? You were hearing records through a particular voice and sound.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big thing. It can get very homogenized as you go to some cities and you realize that there's only like 3 voices in the entire town. There's 3 people that are voice tracking every station in town. And I guess if you don't know any better, that's all you grew up on. But we all, people my age grew up on personality disc jockeys. And we certainly had a ton of them in this town, and it was always a lot of good radio. And so I think that's one of the things that at NCX has been pushed, that it's not just I don't have to sound like Bill Lewis, and Bill doesn't have to sound like Paul or Slats or anybody. You do what you bring to the thing, and hopefully people will like it.
Yeah. Did you have any favorite DJs when you were growing up, besides your dad?
I've never heard my dad other than on some old acetates.
Oh, wow.
I've heard him do sports stuff. I used to do sports also in town. I liked, Jack Armstrong, the leader, and Chuck Dunaway, and all those guys from Wixie 1260. And then, of course, when MMS started, I mean, it was hard not to be under the sway of Leo. And Denny and Matt the Cat and all those Dia Stein, and everybody wanted a voice like Len Goldberg, and that sort of thing. So that was cool. And the neat thing about that was, and once again, when I was saying about how we were kind of spoiled around here because we didn't know any better, like with the way the concert situations were with Belkin and all that thing. We were pretty spoiled radio-wise too, because it was very open and it was very free, and you got to hear a lot of things here that people around the country, even at the height of FM, dominance, AOR's album-oriented rock radio, didn't hear. I mean, and now stations are all streamed on the thing. So I have one of my wife's friends from LA who's into business. He's always listened to us on on Stream in L.A. He'll call me up and he'll go, "You played a Alex Harvey song today." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "How did you get away with that?" I said, "Well, you know, we don't play him, 5 times a day, but we play Alex Harvey." And he goes, he said, "You haven't heard Alex Harvey on the radio in L.A. in 35 years, type of thing." And that's another thing. You go around the country and you realize, wow, we're kind of almost adventuresome here, still, compared to what's going on. But I mean, it was a real natural fit.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that people don't think about that. When I got into the job, there were certain bands that are staples of the thing that I really hadn't paid much attention to, and all of a sudden, one of them, Pink Floyd. I mean, I really didn't care about Pink Floyd one way or the other. It didn't speak to me at all. And I knew like 2 or 3 songs, and all of a sudden, we're playing 20 songs.
Right.
And so it was like, oh, okay, I'm getting my Pink Floyd education
There you go.
later on, and different things like that. So it wasn't all, just being burned out on some of the things.
Yeah. I want to ask you about another song on the new record, "Shifting Gears."
Mm-hmm.
Kind of one of my favorites. How'd that
Well,
song
it's
come about?
funny. I don't know if you saw Chuck Yarbrough did a nice review of the album in the Plain Dealer last weekend, and he brought that song up as one of his favorites, and he spoke to how it was my answer to critics who didn't like me, and I wrote him. We've been in a dialogue back for a couple of days. I said, "Chuck, I had nothing to do with that. It was nothing whatsoever." I said, "I wrote that song like 12 years ago." I said, "I'll send you that song where I don't like the critics." And we started talking. I said, "The interesting part is when I saw how he interpreted it, I said, okay, I see how you got that. Absolutely not anything that I intended." And that's one of the coolest things about music is it can mean something to you that it doesn't mean completely different from what I do. Now, a complete gross misinterpretation is ugly, like "Born in the USA,"
Right.
where everyone thinks it's this it's really a negative song. I mean, it's a great song, but it's not the hey, let's go USA song that everybody portrays or thinks it is. It's pretty dark tune.
Yeah.
But "Shifting Gears" was an example of that. I just the phrase came up in somewhere. I said, "That'd be a good title," and I write it in my book. All songwriters pretty much have books. They just keep them and they write stuff down, and then you go back and you look at it to try to mine that. And a lot of times you go back and go like, "That makes no sense," or "What is this?" or "Why did I write that down?" or "How come I can't read my own handwriting?"
This seemed like a good line. But
yeah. At the time, it seemed that's a good idea at the time, and so that was just a title, and I had some music that seemed to fit that, and so then that's where the craft more than the inspiration comes in. It's like, okay, what's the backstory to get me to the punchline, which is shifting gears, So you work it back around that way. But I think track-wise, it's one of my favorites on it.
Yeah, why don't we hear a little bit of that? It's track 4, "Shifting Gears." That's great, man. I said to Michael, that's going to be great live. That just really drives.
That'd be a fun one to do live. And sometimes when you're doing an album, you look at it that way too. You go like, well, this might not be this might not be Bridge Over Troubled Water here, but this is going to work well live, And you got to keep that in mind when you're doing things.
Well, it's a great song about change and moving now, completely different sound on the record. So in the 70s, country and rock were kind of different worlds, right? But now what's on country radio, we might have considered rock if it was 1972 or 3. Some of the stuff, like a band like Poco maybe, or the Eagles, now might be on kind of contemporary country radio.
They'd be real light on
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's more rock and roll
on
country radio than there is anywhere else at this point. I mean, and if you go to a country show, I mean, every encore is a Mellencamp song or a Seeger song or a Springsteen song or this, it's the whole NCX playlist is every encore at every country show you go to. And so, and that's, it's strange. And I'm kind of sad about that, actually. I mean, I kind of miss I miss even the older ones like George Jones and Haggard and all that. But even, Vince Gill can't get arrested today, type of thing. It's a strange thing where everybody kind of eats their idols, and all of a sudden it's like, well, we don't need you anymore. You stand over here and we'll give you an award in 15 years or something like that. But for songwriters, Nashville's the place. That's the only place that are still doing songs, but it's a very, very closed shop, so.
Definitely some country influence here on the record in different spots. I was thinking of specifically a Sweet Spot.
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked country music. I've always liked, that's part of my problem. I was MSB, my stuff and MSB stuff, we were always kind of a marketing person's nightmare because there was a lot of, some people call the records schizophrenic. I call them eclectic.
There you go.
Which is a real nice way to say schizophrenic. But it's the whole thing of, every once in a while I set out and I go, I'm going to make a seriously in-your-face rock album this time. And about halfway through, I get bored with it. It's like, let's do something different here. Or the same way, I'm going to just be so mellow this album, and then you're just putting yourself to sleep.
Yeah.
So you've got to, I have to mix it up. It's the only thing that keeps me interested in terms of recording and writing. I mean, if you're going to write the same song over and over, it's, why do it?
Did you ever kind of set out to write a rock song and you just end up writing a different song?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
sure.
That must be right. I'm
Yeah,
going to really make a mellow record. Damn, I wrote a rock song.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting. We do some acoustic shows too, where we just take a lot of the songs that are in the rock band set and put them into a little more acoustic vibe, and a lot of them change feel completely and change attitude completely. And some people always say if it's a good song, you could do it anyway. I don't necessarily think that's totally true for everything. You're not going to do a speed metal version of Bridge Over Troubled Water. You're just not going to do it.
I'm sure somebody has.
Yeah, probably. But once again, it's the thing of being open to where any of this leads. Some people, they get their blinders on, and I think they're losing a lot of good stuff that they could, a lot of good venues they could go down.
Why don't we hear a little bit of Sweet Spot, which is track 7. A little fiddle on there.
Oh yeah, Ed Kaner.
off line is great right there, right? We're in this thing together now.
It is. It's true. That's Tom's favorite song.
All right.
That's Tom. He's the best boss in the world. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Tom. Completely different vibe. A song that really struck out at me was Snakes.
Yeah.
Real rock song.
The weird thing is that with Sweet Spot, when I did it, I realized this is going to be the the runt of the litter. It's not going to fit real well with everything else. And then when you start to sequence the album, because we have the older generation still think in terms of sequencing an album. It was like, where do you put this? That it won't be a car crash. And I realized there's probably nowhere that you can put it that it won't be a car crash. So Snakes is the heaviest thing on the album. So we decided, well, if you're going to have the car crash, let's make a giant car crash. So that's where it ended up. That one ended up after the heaviest song.
I love that. So I went right to the car crash. That was my favorite. And Snakes has this great line, "Church ain't over till the snakes are back in the bag."
Exactly.
Which, is just a great, great line. Why don't we crank up a little bit of Snakes, track 6? I went out of sequence. Sorry, man.
That's okay. Math is never a strong point over here.
Crunchy guitar.
You see the problem there, because you want to play that guitar part.
Yeah.
You just want to play that. You want to crank the amp up and play a guitar. But then at the next song, you want to go let the fiddle player do something.
Yeah.
So
Eclectic.
Like I said, since the world tour is not in jeopardy, I can do this shit.
Yeah. It's supposed to be fun, right?
Well, that's the whole idea. It's like, what do we want to do next? It's that's the beauty of it. And I'm lucky to have the opportunity to do that.
I'm sure folks will have a lot of questions. I want to get a few of those in before we move to the signing. So we're going to have a couple mics in the room, one on each side. And if you guys wouldn't mind raising your hand and just taking a minute to get the mic to you so we can hear it on the stream, and also so that we can hear you up on stage.
I could probably make this shorter for you, okay? Because I'll give you the answers to the 3 that you want to know the most. All right? Kevin Raleigh and I are friends. Jan Jones and I never were an item. And I have absolutely no idea who the woman on the front of Stage Pass is.
That's great.
Thank you.
Drop the mic. You're out. Casey, if you want to come down all the way to the front, if you would. All the way. Thank you. Carol, down in front. The Great Stage Pass. I love that record.
This lady came all the way from Columbus.
Yes.
I live up here, though.
Oh, you
I had an office in Columbus. I actually born and raised here in Seatown. What was the motivation for the design of your album cover?
Kid smoking a cigarette
Smoking
with a
kid,
chicken.
man.
This is I don't know if you've seen it. It's one of my favorite album covers. It's a little boy with a giant chicken, and he's smoking a cigarette. Somebody sent me this picture, and to my email, and with the caption, "Was this you when you were a kid?" And I looked at it. I said, I don't know what the deal is here, but this is the next album cover. But it turns out, so I traced it down, and the picture comes from the Canadian National Archives. It's a picture from 1910 of some kid named Henry something sitting with this giant rooster, smoking a cigarette. And I told our graphics guy, I said, we have to put inside that this is not Photoshop. This is exactly the... You can go to the Canadian National Archives and find this little dude there. But my best friend, who's in the band, he came in and he said, do you have the cover yet? And I said, yeah, I had a rough thing of it. I showed it to him. And he held it for like a minute and a half. And then he goes, you're just getting so weird in your old age.
That's great. What else we got out there? Jen, right there, the woman right in the middle. Plaid shirt. Just kind of pass down the mic.
Hi, Mike. So when are you going to write a book?
A book?
Ah.
I got some really good stories, but you aren't going to hear those. That's the thing, you know. You know what? A number of people have been asking me for a couple of years to do that. And every once in a while it seems like a good idea to me, and other times it doesn't. I have started to do something to try to put something chronological together. If anybody was interested in that, to me, it has more to do with the music than it has to do with us in particular, or me in particular. So I started to do it more as a thing to maybe leave for my kids or something like that. But the one thing I realized after I started, because I love reading interviews with musicians and producers and this sort of thing, and being a guitar, people who are into equipment, they call them gear sluts. I'm a gear slut. And so you always want to know, like, what did Billy Gibbons use on this thing? And what amp was Beck playing through on this? And how did Clapton, what was he doing there? And where did they mic the amp? And a lot of these guys give these detailed, amazing answers. And so when I get together and start to write these things down, I go, I can't even remember what studio we were in, let alone what mic was on the amp, or what the amp was, or what guitar I had, or what age strings I used. So I think they're really all bullshit, mostly. It could happen, but I don't know. I don't think the world's waiting.
Great story. So, Casey, right there by your side there. Thank you.
Michael, I think you mentioned one of your new song titles a little earlier, Eat Your Idols. New song title.
Yeah.
How did Little Texas go about contacting you to do Our Town?
Good question.
I mean my town, sorry.
It was back, I think it was right after MSB broke up, or right before we were getting ready to break up. And I realized that, if there was going to be a second life, I had to come up with something. And it goes back to what I said earlier. So my main thing is I wanted to be a songwriter. And especially at that time, Nashville was starting to really get huge. So I had written a lot of country flavored tunes, and I specifically sat down and wrote maybe 5 or 6 more. And I put together a demo tape of them. And I sent it around to Nashville to people that I knew there, and just sort of blind submissions to things too. And then I got a call, like a month later, I got a call from a guy who was the producer for Little Texas, who was just starting to be a big band at that point. And he said, hey, we want to do It's Tune of Yours. And I said, whoa, you heard the tape? And he said, what tape? And I said, tape, it's going around Nashville. He goes, I don't hear any tape. He goes, he says, I'm from Akron. He said, I want to do My Town.
Huh.
And I said, that is the last song in the world I would have sent to Nashville.
Right.
I just wouldn't have done it. I would have wasted anybody's time with it. But it spoke to these guys and their producer, and they called me out, and they said, can we change one line in it to make it a little less urban and a little more country, And if you want to do that, you have to get the author's permission to do that. I said, you can change whatever you want, dude. Just record it. And they recorded it, and luckily for me, it was on an album that was their biggest album. It was kind of, at the time, it was like the country thriller. It had like 6 #1 singles off it in a row, and the album just kept selling like crazy. And It was great. I mean, it's far and away it's the most money I ever made in the music business. Was
Really?
from Little Texas doing that song.
Wow. It's all in the songwriting, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of horror stories, which I know you're well aware of people that don't have their publishing or got screwed out of their publishing because that's just the way it used to be. Like I said, if you were just wanting to make a record, you'd sign anything.
Sure.
You'd give them your sister. You didn't care. You just do this so you could, sort of fulfill your dream. And a lot of people lost their publishing. Some have been lucky enough to get it back and things, but that's really where the money is in terms of recording.
Sure. All the way down, sir, right there. Chris, yeah. The gentleman right there. Yep.
Hi, Michael. I love your cover of "To Love Somebody." Do you have any of your songs that you think other artists could do a good job with?
Thank you. First of all, that was a fun song to do. I have a lot of them. I can't realize why they've just ignored them this long. I mean, it was, and that's I think in terms of moving on to some other level, that's really the only thing left for me, or that's open to me, is if somebody else would to get this. Now I could pair the songs up with people and go, you should do this, you should do that, we'll all be fine. We'll all make a lot of money. We'll all have a good time. But once again, it's a who you know type of thing, or a lot of times it has to be an artist who has a lot of control and a lot of power. I happen to know. I wrote a song. I think not for this album. I think it was the album before. And the minute I wrote it, I